And he said, John, I don't think you're ready yet, but are you interested in selling? I thought it would be a lot easier than it really was. We agreed on a consulting contract that I would stay involved with the business, which I thought was very important. I needed that social connection, but still there was a little emptiness.
What would be one piece of advice or one thought that you would leave with our listeners today?
Find out what makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning.
Welcome to the Business Transition Roadmap. My name is Elizabeth Ledoux, and through my years, I have seen how communities thrive when business succession and transition are done well. Me and my team at the Transition Strategists have been helping business owners develop and implement transition strategies for over 30 years. And on this show, we want to help you by giving you the roadmap to a healthy business transition. Let's get started.
Welcome back, everybody, to our Business Transition Roadmap. I'm Elizabeth Ledoux, and today I'm just very pleased to be joined by John Arnolfo. He's been the steward, he was for more than 4 decades, of what we would call the iconic Silver Grill Café in Old Town Fort Collins. And it's the oldest continuously operating restaurant in Northern Colorado. And it is truly a beloved breakfast and lunch institution, famous for its cinnamon rolls and its small town hospitality. John is here today to walk us through his journey, not with the Silver Grill, but also his journey following, and most importantly, following his sale of the Silver Grill, and just what that journey looked like, so that for those of you who are contemplating a sale like his, how to prepare and what to do and what to watch out for. So John, thank you so much for being here with us. And why don't you tell us just a little bit about your journey?
Well, Elizabeth, thank you for having me, and I'm so flattered with the compliments. The first thing that caught my attention with your comments is the Silver Grill being iconic. And for a long time, obviously, the Silver Grill was in business and started in 1933. And I didn't consider myself iconic or a tradition in Fort Collins. And certainly after the sale of the Silver Grill, the accolades that I received and continue to receive is just so rewarding. And now I'm a believer that that we're actually iconic, and we are a fabric of Fort Collins. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. And you were able to purchase that and help to keep it alive through the ups and downs and grow it all the way for over 40 years to where you had it in a position where you were able to sell it. So why don't we start with the sale and then what it was like to move into that new era in your life? So how did that sale come about?
I purchased the Silver Grill well over 40 years ago, and it was in a one building, very small restaurant. So where it ended up in 5 buildings and 6,000 square feet and over 200 seats for customers was very surprising. I had often, I started my journey early on with transition. And believe it or not, I look back and I started it back in 1995, and that's 30 years ago. And being a sole proprietor, if you will, I always knew that I wanted to transition out. And as I continued in the business, I observed and I realized the number of businesses that did not plan for transition. So I was always looking for an exit strategy and someone that could become my partner and eventually purchase the Silver Grill. The big event that happened was COVID, obviously, and at that time I projected and hoped that my exit would be between the ages of 65 and 70. So I'm 68 years old, COVID happens, and I just start thinking that I'm going to get out of COVID and it's going to take me a year or two. And I received a phone call. And the phone call was from a fellow competitor that I knew and did not know very well. And I had a premonition that, an inclination that he was calling me because he might be interested in the Silver Grill. So that's how it started. It started with a breakfast, and the question came, and he said, "John, I don't think you're ready yet, but are you interested in selling?" And my comment was, I remember, "Is tomorrow okay?" And it was really that easy. And we met, and after our third meeting, we had come to terms on a price and transition. We had a handshake deal, and within 3 months, the sale was complete.
Wow, that's a great story, and that was a pretty quick transition for you from being in to really having that sale happen. And so, what was it like in that journey as you entered into no longer being in control of the Silver Grill and having the responsibility of owning and running it? What happened with you?
I really, at the beginning, I was prepared for the transitioning out, and I thought it would be a lot easier than it really was. Being in the restaurant business, I'm very social, have a lot of friends. I'm very active. I did a couple things that turned out to be very well. One was we agreed on a consulting contract that I would stay involved with the business, which I thought was very important. I needed that social connection, and I didn't want it to be an abrupt uh, exit from the business. So I continued to go into the Silver Grill and stay connected the with the business and the new owner, who I became very good friends with. I thought the transition would be easier, even with the Silver Grill still me being involved in it. I have hobbies. I like to do a lot of different things, and but still there was a little emptiness of what do I do in my free time when I'm not enjoying my hobbies and going to the Silver Grill. So I had to learn how to transition into that. And Elizabeth, with your help, you helped me.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And I really appreciate you being willing to come, because so many owners, I think, believe that they are prepared and they're ready. And when you actually dive into it, I think there's some unknowns and unforeseen things always. What were some of those things that you found when you wandered through the actual transition?
Well, I'm single, and so I knew there was going to be a big void to fill. And I have family, I have sons in town, and I thought that playing golf or fly fishing or traveling was going to be enough. What I noticed was the off times, the everyday, and getting up in the morning. And I did find that I found myself watching the news for only a little bit on the computer, and then it was like, what am I going to do the rest of the day? And as I discovered with conversations with you, is I'm someone that really needs to have interaction, social interaction. And as silly as it sounds, there were days I would just decide to leave the house and go shopping and grocery shopping or whatever it might be. And that was a way that fulfilled me with energy. And so those were different ways that I found that I realized, and that I certainly needed social interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting, because I remember that conversation you and I were having, and I remember how social you are, because it's varying degrees of being, and this is how you gain your energy. So I remember you going, oh my gosh, yeah, I do. I need to be around people a lot, which you had at the Silver Grill. Every time you walked through the door, right? There were people everywhere. Yeah, just so
And that
natural.
that piece was gone. So I did do some searching, and as you know, I thought maybe I wanted to be an extra player in a movie. I wanted to be the guy in the background, not an actor. I pursued that for a while. And Elizabeth, you said I needed to find that one thing that wanted me to jump out of bed and be excited about something. And as we transitioned and continued to chat, I had always wanted to write a book. But I'm not a writer, I'm not an author, and I found that very, very difficult. And I was able to find a great editor based on recommendations by you, Elizabeth. And we talked for about a year and a half, and I really struggled with how do I start. And Kathy, her name, uh, she said, just start writing. And so now I'm writing, and it literally took me a year and a half to write that first story. And I found that the stories just started to flow, and they're very easy. So I'm in the process now of writing a memoir. I am near completion of finishing the chapters. But the point I want to make is it's been so extremely rewarding and self-reflecting. And my book is one of memoirs. And what's been really fun is really thinking back. And I went as far back as my parents immigrating to the United States, and then my relationship with my father's Model A, which happened to be 1930, which coincided with the Silver Grill. And we followed that whole history. And I've been able to reconnect with relatives that I literally have not talked to in probably 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, I love it. And I can't wait to read it when it comes out, actually. As you navigated this, you did have one thing I loved about you when we were working together like that. And back then was that you were willing to go look and willing to search and willing to try new things, but also willing to stop new things. You kind of had that curiosity and were able to go do that. You didn't just wait to find something the right thing, you would experiment. So talk a little bit about that. How was it experimenting, the ups and the downs?
Well, I found that being a background actor was not for me. And but I continued along the same path of my social activities, going to the Silver Grill, playing golf, fly fishing, and did quite a bit of traveling. Big part of it was also bringing my boys a little bit more into the fold of about who I am, and sharing some estate planning, something that I had never really talked about with them before. I've realized that, and I always knew this, maybe it wasn't a sudden realization, that my boys are very different. And that's a learning process that uh, we're all different. And so I continue to talk to my boys, and not at a very deep level, but I'm gradually bringing them in and sharing more and more about planning the transition. I really believe that the book is going to be a big eye opener for them. And part of the writing the book, and I said it's so self-reflecting and rewarding. It's really going to be a journal and a history of our lives meaning my family, and there's going to be things about their great grandparents, my grandparents, my mother and father, but also relationships and relationships as it related to business. I found that my relationships in business was paramount, and looking back at the many things that I did do, how the relationships in the end played a huge role.
Yeah. Yeah, relationships in our lives are so important. And in yours, I know that you still have just a very close relationship with the gentleman that bought the Silver Grill.
Absolutely, and that was terrific. And I had a very good friend in Brooks Mitchell, and I had many different mentors in my life, and Brooks was one of my mentors, and and an entrepreneur himself. And he said it's so rare that both a buyer and a seller, after the first year, feel like they got a good deal. And we not only both got a good deal, we're friends, and it's now been 4 years.
Yeah. So proof right here that you can have harmony and legacy in an external sale, right? And that you
Yeah.
also, that it's actually possible to have a win-win, because a lot of times it's not like that.
Well, and I think that's important you bring that up. And I was very fortunate, and I made investments in the Silver Grill buildings, and I always knew that that would be part of my retirement portfolio. But what I was unsure of was the sale of the business. And I had seen over the years so many great businesses that had not planned for an exit strategy, and they ended up just closing the doors. And if they were lucky enough to own the real estate, that could have been a retirement, or it was retirement for them. If they didn't, a lot of times they just walked away. So I have to say I did a lot of things by accident. I never would have dreamed that I would own 5 buildings, all adjacent to each other, and I never dreamed that they would be my major form of my retirement income. So made some decisions by accident, I'll say, but they turned out to be very, very, very good for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And, entrepreneurs, many times our intuition plays a big role in where we end up and some of the decisions that we make. And, a little bit of risk here and there, of course, right?
A lot of risk. As I'm writing this book, I look back and Elizabeth, I can't believe some of the things I did to get where I am. I'm not complimenting myself. I'm going, I must have been crazy.
Yeah, I must have been crazy, and probably half the people that were looking at you thought you were.
Oh yeah. Oh, yes, you're correct.
Some sleepless nights for sure. But that can be a common theme with entrepreneurial people. What were some of the most unexpected things that happened to you that were on the downside that you could potentially help people think about and either mitigate or plan for or know they're going to come? Because there is a neutral zone between an ending of something and a beginning of another. And you and I talked about that a variety of times. And you and I have worked together off and on for what, 2-3 years.
We've been working, I think, 2 or 3 years. Yes.
Yeah. And so there always is, there's a neutral zone between an ending and a beginning, and it's usually very uncomfortable, that neutral zone. So how would you help people to prepare for that? And what was it like for you to be in that?
Well, I already mentioned it, and I believe that this was very valuable for me, and that was to start planning very, very early. And I went through in the restaurant business, which is a very transitional business for employees. I went through probably over a half dozen managers at the time that I thought would possibly take over the business. And then when that didn't happen, I continued to look for the next. I think probably the biggest surprise to our whole world was COVID, and that really threw a curveball to everybody. And as I look back at it, I'm sure I was stressed, but I never looked back and felt stressed. I knew I had the buildings, and I knew at the very least I would have those. And if I was lucky enough to sell the business, then that would be a plus. So there were certainly times, and certainly early on, the risks I was taking, I didn't know if if they would if they would play out and be successful. I think being an entrepreneur, a lot of times when you have success, it becomes addictive.
Mm.
And then sometimes it can be that same quality that you have of never giving up. Sometimes you don't know when to give up, and sometimes you have to give up. And I did learn that uh, at a time in the 90s when I tried to expand into an ice cream and cinnamon roll shop. It didn't work out that well, uh, but it took me 5 years to finally admit to myself that this is just not a good path. So here again, I think knowing when to push forward, knowing when to give up, I think is really important. But that entrepreneurial spirit, it's something that you have, and you have it in your soul. And you just got to know when to go for it, but then when to maybe cut back and give up
Yeah. Yeah. Or let go because
or
at
let
the
go.
yeah, and you know, in that one example of the ice cream and cinnamon shop, that one, I'm assuming that you stopped that and basically shut that one down and went, you know, that then went back into your core of the Silver Grill. But um, you know, when business owners get to a place where it's time for them, because I see business owners sometimes hanging on too long to the business
Absolutely.
where it's status quo. And yeah, and so that it's not even to give up. It's in that case, it's when to, I think of passing it forward, right? Passing it along or passing it forward to another generation to take it forward. And yeah, it's such a cool experience to be able to do that and know when the time is right.
I totally agree. And I used the word give up, and it wasn't give up. It was really changing the path, recognizing that this wasn't going to work, and try something else. Throughout the
Yeah.
whole history of the Silver Grill, I tried a lot of things. I'll say all the things I tried, and they were small things like delivering cinnamon rolls in a push cart, or opened a souvenir stand. Uh, there were things that taught me lessons, and they weren't all successful, but they taught me a lesson of of trying different things in order to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Well, I'm always surprised at how fast our time goes. It really does. I get into these conversations and to me, they're so rich and rewarding. So, you know, if I always ask this at the end of our time together, in your world of transitioning, what would be one thing, one piece of advice or one thought that you would leave with our listeners today?
Elizabeth, I've got to use the saying that you taught me, and that's find out what makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning. And that's a lot harder to do than it sounds. I can go back and relate that to finding the perfect business as an entrepreneur that you absolutely love. So in retirement, you have to find that one thing that you absolutely love. And I'll just say now I'm a little worried that what am I going to do after I write this book, Elizabeth?
I don't know. You might write another, or you might start going and speaking to different entrepreneurial groups, or there might be something that'll come and pop up. But yeah, it's all a fun exploration and journey of life.
I, I'm really enjoying it. And now I'm spending more time with my boys who are adult men, 35 and 39. And I'm enjoying my time at home. I'm enjoying traveling. And I really couldn't imagine a better retirement right now.
That is awesome. That's so great to hear. Well, on that note of being happy and a great example of somebody who did have harmony, legacy, and a win-win all the way around and found his next adventure. That thing that he has referenced a couple times is it's a Japanese term called Ikigai, if I pronounced that right. And yeah, just your reason for jumping out of bed. So my wish, and I think John's wish as well for you all, is for you to be able to find that and enjoy that as you begin to transition away from your company. So
Totally agree. Find that one thing. And it might be more than one thing.
It could be. So, John, thank you so much for your time today and for joining us here. And my recommendation is when you're in Fort Collins, Colorado, make sure you stop by the Silver Grill downtown in Old Town Fort Collins. It's the best.
It would be a treat. We would appreciate it.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Transition Roadmap. If you're ready to start shaping your own transition strategy, which I'm really hoping that you are, our team at the Transition Strategists would love to offer you a free discovery strategy session where you can explore what might be good for you and just some new ideas. We've got a new perspective and a new approach with people first. And a lot of what we talk about, nobody has ever really done before. So I want to encourage you to think about that and to go to transitionstrategist.com/discovery to schedule your call if you are even curious. It's free, no pressure. We'd love to talk to you. And by the way, if you're a successor or if you've got one in your business, you'll also want to check out for sure Your Next Gen Friend, A Successor's Guide to Business Transition. It's a podcast that's hosted by my successor, Andrea Carpenter. She's incredible. And this one is specifically designed for rising leaders in family businesses. So thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on the Business Transition Roadmap.